Red Islam. Today I have a question for you. What are your thoughts on polyamory and polyamorous relationships? I ask because the number of people engaging in polyamory and having polyamorous relationships is increasing as the days go on. And in today's story, we have someone whose wife brought up the topic and wants to open their relationship. Let's see what the OP has to say about it. This story comes from username throwaway9999. My wife of 16 years had an emotional affair and wanted my consent to take it further. I recently found this subreddit and it's been helping me understand and cope with this god-awful nightmare I'm in. I'm using a throwaway account because I spend a lot of time elsewhere on Reddit. My wife, 40F, and I, 44M, have been married for 16 years and have 2 elementary school aged kids. Over 2 months ago, she pulled me aside one night to tell me she's been having an emotional affair. Her exact words, with this guy she's been hanging out with for the past couple of months. I know the guy, AF, and I was aware that they've been hanging out. Having opposite sex friends has never been a problem in our marriage. At least until now, since we've both been conscious of boundaries. Also worth noting, the initial hangouts weren't unusual since her AF has a similar aged kid, and the meetups started as public space play dates. This is what she told me that night. You know, AF, the guy I've been hanging out with, well, yesterday I confessed to him that I think I'm having an emotional affair. You should also know that a month back he told me he was polyamorous, and this was in response to me telling him about 2 of my friends who are polyamorous. And yesterday when I told him about my feelings, he said he felt the same way, but we now need to pause and get your husband's consent. I was stunned, to say the least, but calmly taking this in and trying to be open-minded. She and I have talked about her polyamorous friends before. I know her friends, but not well, and my wife has even expressed interest in non-monogamy for us, but farther in the future. She was adamant that this not be a thing we try until the kids are out of the house. She was also adamant that if/when we tried non-monogamy, that emotional attachments ought to be kept to a minimum. I said this could be fun to discuss and explore, and that I was open to whatever enhanced our relationship, provided we protect our marriage. She agreed. Some more context about our relationship. Our sex life has been quite fulfilling even after 16 years of marriage. She has not once expressed that I'm not giving her enough physical attention, probably too much if she were pressed to admit it. However, our communication has been a problem for years. It was fine before kids, but then got progressively worse. You know the stereotypical boy/girl relationship where the girl says we need to talk, and the boy would rather do anything else? That's us, but reversed. I love to talk about anything, and I love a healthy disagreement. We can easily talk about what to have for dinner or what to watch on Netflix, sure, but anything potentially problematic like finances or household stuff or planning for the future, she avoids like the plague. I'll sometimes insist we address an issue, but I've also learned to back off when it appears it's going to make the situation worse. Also, know that she was just recently diagnosed ADHD. I suspect a combination of ADHD, anxiety, and depression is at play here with her. And we also have 2 kids, so everything's damn hard on top of life in general. Therefore, when she brought up non-monogamy, I also saw it as a chance to start having deep discussions again. I saw it as an opportunity to bring us closer, but these talks never quite happened like I had hoped. We would talk, but not in depth and not for very long. I attributed this to her just being generally exhausted by parenting and work and life. I should mention here that this would have been a year before we first met her AF. Yes, I met him too, and I'm as confident as I can be that their friendship didn't start until a year and a half after her first mentioning non-monogamy as a possibility for us in the future. So, she asked for my consent to open our marriage. She wanted to have this physical and emotional relationship with AF, and she stressed that she wanted to have this physical and emotional relationship with AF, and she stressed that she also wanted us to continue as the primary relationship. I asked her if she changed her mind about emotional attachments, and she said she has. That now knows she needs an emotional connection first before having a physical relationship. After discussing it a bit, I said I might be open to this, but would need to think about it, and we went to bed. And in the middle of the night, my heart started pounding and my mind started racing. I didn't know it at the time, but this was the first night of 2 months of bad sleep as I would develop waking insomnia. By morning, and significantly exhausted. I told my wife that my body's telling me something isn't right and I'll need more time to think about it. The next 5 days were excruciatingly hard. At one point, my wife noticed I seemed to be progressing through the stages of grief. I conceded that was an intriguing observation, but then wondered, what am I grieving? Before the week was up, we were contacting marriage therapists. In my reduced state, I let my wife handle this, and she would end up picking a therapist who specialized in both marriage counseling and open relationships. The open relationship question was in our therapy sessions ultimately petered out as an issue, since it was clear from the first meeting that our marriage needed more attention than any discussion of opening it. Another problem here is that while I could talk about this with my wife and our therapist, and she had her friends to talk to, I didn't have anybody else. Her situation was so secretive. Therefore, I told her I needed more help, and I asked if I could reach out to one of my longtime friends and get his advice. She agreed, but I could only talk to him, and after telling him what had happened, he pointed out the obvious, that she was cheating on me, being selfish, and acting totally crazy. Around this time, I discovered she was still seeing her AF several times a week. They'd go out drinking together, have lunch together, or she'd go to his house at night and watch TV. She said that we're just friends and that we're not doing anything wrong. I was hurt, but I wasn't thinking clearly enough to ask her to stop. 2.5 weeks after the initial bombshell, which for me meant poor sleep, a minimal appetite, therapy, and many hours getting help from my friend, I gave her my answer. I choose us. I don't want to open our marriage. You can pick me or him, but not both. Also, while you're figuring this out and we're going to therapy, I want you to cut off all contact with AF. She refused to stop seeing him, of course. She said they're just friends. I countered with, you are definitely more than friends. She said she had a right to be friends with whomever she wanted, and she resented me trying to control her. During the next 4 weeks, she and I continued to be civil while we worked through this, but our arguments got more and more heated. We'd go on a few dates to see if that would help things. I felt they did. She thought they felt hollow. I think we were both right. Our arguments intensified. She got an individual therapist. I got an individual therapist, and we kept going to therapy together. And at some point, she started sleeping in the guest bedroom, and when I realized that she was unable to cut herself off from her AF, I told her, not asking permission, that I would be contacting her AF for an in-person meetup. And I did. He wouldn't meet me without her, and I said I didn't care. I had 3 objectives for our meeting: to confirm what my wife was saying was true. Remember, she was my only source that this whole thing was actually happening. To look him in the eye while asking him these questions and gauge his reaction. To tell him to stop communicating with my wife in any way while we were in therapy and still married. At first, he denied they were anything more than friends, but midway through our chat, he shifted his narrative to my feelings about your wife are private. When I told him to stop seeing her, he said, I support her choice in all this. I said, that's nice, but you are an adult who's also making a choice, and you are choosing to undermine our marriage. He didn't respond, and I said, we're done here. My wife, who was there the whole time, was humiliated and blamed me for humiliating her. I felt I had to do what I did. By the night, she says she's made up her mind and wanted a divorce. Hearing her explicitly say she wanted a divorce was the hardest moment for me. She sounded so sure. The next day, I'm calling my parents, my sister, and my in-laws to give the news. Yes, I'm very close to my wife's parents. They regard me as a son, and my love for them is just as strong. They know a little about what we are going through, but not about the AF because my wife didn't feel like that was any of their business, her words. So I told them. Their response was unexpected. I was devastated about getting a divorce, but my in-laws were strangely calm. My mother-in-law said, give her time and space. Remove yourself from her day-to-day as much as possible. We love you both, no matter what happens. I didn't really understand, but they explained that this happened to them about 30 years ago. My mother-in-law had an emotional affair, and the antidote for her was the time and space needed to let the reality of her choice set in. They explained to me that it's not guaranteed to work, but it's the best course of action to take if the marriage is to be saved. This conversation was a couple of weeks ago. Since then, I've ceased most daily interactions with my wife. I'll talk about the kids if necessary, about mundane household stuff, but not about us. No arguments and no emotional reactions. She'd tell me she's going out to see her AF, and I'd say, okay. One day, she realized that I told others about her emotional affair, including her mom and dad, and she got angrier than I've ever seen in my life. I assumed the outburst was her house of cards starting to come crashing down. She fumed at me. That's not your story to tell, but I only said, I understand. No reaction, no discussion. She said that I ruined her relationship with her parents for possibly the rest of her life. I thought, no, you did that. But I didn't say anything. I had a trip planned with my friend since before all this started. This is with my friend who helped me through this. So I just recently left for that. In the past, I'd normally share photos of my adventures with my wife and we chat each night. Now this time, it's been near silence. So that brings us to the present. I have an appointment coming up to consult with a lawyer. I'm sleeping better than I have in a long time in addition to eating well and exercising. My wife is the love of my life, but I know it takes two to make this work. I will take her back if she ultimately makes the choice to come back. She'll have to do some significant soul searching to convince me. And even then, I'm not going to easily accept her turnabout choice. But if not, then I need to let her go and move on. Thanks for listening to my story, and feel free to comment, ask questions, or give advice. I welcome it. Now before I give my opinion on this, I want you to give yours down below, and then I'm going to give my opinion, and then I'm going to read the comments. So to answer my question from the beginning of the video, my thought on polyamory is whatever floats anyone's boats. I personally would not engage in polyamory, and if I had a partner who's expressed interest in polyamory, I'd have a long discussion with them, and if they told me that it was inevitable, then the relationship would have to end because I'm strictly monogamous. Now, for the OP in the situation, I feel like there's more to this story that he's not being told, because when I hear similar stories about this, about a partner cheating, specifically like a wife or a girlfriend cheating, and she has friends in her ear or there's a guy in her ear putting these thoughts in her head. So we have 3 people doing that. We have the 2 friends of hers talking about their polyamory to her, probably putting an idea in her head, and then there's the guy who she crossed so many boundaries with. The emotional affair alone would be enough for me to call it quits, because you crossed the line, you disrespected the vows, depending on what they were, you disrespected the marriage, like it's a slap in the face. And he gave her the ultimatum to choose between him or AF. I don't even know what AF means. And she did not choose him. It wouldn't matter if she said she wouldn't stop seeing him. She made her choice. She didn't pick him. Now the mother-in-law talking about give her time and space. You can give her all the time and space she needs after a divorce. Then she'll have all the time and space she needs, because she made her bed already. Let her lie in it now. She's going to see the guy. She's keeping this a secret because she knows she's wrong. If it's a problem that you're telling your business, because again, it is your business. Your relationship is being affected. It is your story to tell. And I hope the OP does divorce her. He needs to have some self-respect and end it. Don't let her call the shots. She made her choice. Now let her live with it. Let her see that she fucked up. And with that being said, let's get into the comments. It would be worth letting AF's wife know. Chances are she's in an open marriage and doesn't even know it. If they are open, then she'll take a very dim view of AF destroying someone's marriage just to get a third. AF's evasiveness to OP's questions and insisting OP's wife was there to present a united front makes it obvious AF's wife doesn't know she is in an open relationship. Someone who lives that lifestyle would be open and honest with questions and back off when it was clear OP wasn't happy. They don't want to break up families. OP, your marriage is over. Your wife has shown her primary relationship is with AF. She just wants permission to cheat and has fallen for AF's bullshit. The only thing you need to do is file for divorce. AF's caginess from our single meter puzzled me too. I thought he would at least acknowledge that was happening. He did through inference, but not specifically. My best guess is that he's hedging himself in case this all continues to go south. He doesn't want to get entangled in a bad marriage breakup. I mean, he already is and was, but I think he's trying to distance himself a bit. Of course, they still see each other, but they're not admitting anything to me. I also wondered why he's being so loose with the norms of his lifestyle if he takes it seriously. I think he sees himself as not having crossed any lines yet, assuming they aren't fucking, which I get everyone here thinks has happened, so therefore he's still honest. It's a shitty line he's drawn. My wife too, but who can say what an affair fog will make people believe? The OP added a comment here to clarify some things. I can add clarity here. As I understand it, the AF is still married but separated. Both he and his separated wife are polyamorous and are staying legally married for their child. The AF currently has a primary girlfriend, or a public partner as it's called, and my wife would have joined their polycule as a secondary, not public partner. In her fantasy originally, I would consent and we would be a primary couple. And now that I'm part of this polycule, I would be free to go find other partners myself. Also, the AF's girlfriend knows about my wife. My wife even said several weeks back that the three of them had lunch together, and my wife described it as very welcoming. Sounds cultish to me, but having learned a hell of a lot more about this lifestyle in the last 2 months, I understand warm and welcoming is their preferred norm. Does your head hurt getting all this straight? Mine does. Mine does too. Polycule? Does anybody hear that and not think of a cult? Because that sounds like some cult shit. Messy, isn't it? I guess that you can now see just how primary you would have actually been had you agreed. At the first sign of trouble, she files for divorce. She picked them and this lifestyle over you. Edit. I'd still have another chat with AF's GF. I really don't think that your soon-to-be ex-wife is being honest with her about her interactions with AF. Or, at least it could be spun that way if you get me. Your soon-to-be ex-wife is throwing her hat into the ring as his GF's replacement. I severely doubt that she understands the strength of your feeling your wife has for him. I'd bet that they left that conversation with, if your husband's okay, then I'm okay. If not, then it was nice meeting you, type of thing. She sure as heck isn't expecting her to end your marriage over it. I see more clearly now since this was months ago. But know that before Labor Day weekend, I was, in my mind, happily married and living my best life with a wonderful family. My wife's been unhappy at times in the past few years. Who hasn't? But it was never get a divorce unhappiness. People may say there were signs, but I'm not an inattentive husband. I was consistently present, and this was out of the blue. My wife was the love of my life. My soulmate, if you want to get weird about it. Even after she open marriage bombed me, she still expressed her usual love for me. It was only after I wrecked her fantasy that things started to deteriorate. I'm at the beginning stage of fully letting her go. I don't think she can come back from this. It's possible she'll hit bottom and want to fix things, but I'll have moved on by then. She showed a spark of wanting to fix things as recently as Halloween night. We were walking around as a family and she briefly opened up. She saw her AF on the following night, and by the next night was firmly back in divorce mode. It's hard not to see her seeing him as having influence. The comments I mentioned that her and the affair partner are probably fucking, alright, because she's already crossing boundaries. You're telling me that a grown woman is not gonna have sex with a guy that she has emotions for, that she's hanging out with all the time? She's definitely having more than just an emotional affair. I think the marriage is over and he should throw in the towel and divorce her. But that's gonna be all for today. I hope you enjoyed this video and let me know what you think down below. But that being said, I'll catch you in the next one. Later.